This conference will now be recorded.
The bleach.
Yes, it is.
There's a bunch of stories. Have you ever seen those guys after they're done? Thank you. Once you sign, that's it.
Laura, they'll just go behind it.
Now that the chia pet stage. Fall over. Can you start the meeting? Yes. Call to order and do the pledge. Stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, welcome everybody to our special meeting. First item is public comment. Public comment.
And, can I say one thing? I'm sorry, somebody.
Yeah, I have a letter from Nadine Bixby. She couldn't make it here tonight, OHPC chairwoman, and she asked me to read it and to get it put in the minutes, so with your permission, I'll read it.
Sure. Kevin, you want to can I say one thing, Mike?
Yeah.
This is a regular village board meeting. If you want to talk about any of this stuff, now's when you need to talk about it, because when we get going in the middle of the meeting, the public doesn't get to talk or chime in, so say or say now.
After that, I'm nervous. There's a letter from Nadine Bixby. Dear Mr. Mayor and trustees, I encourage the Board of Trustees to vote in favor of contributing $10,000 to receive a matching grant of $20,000 from New York State to hire professional consultant Jamie Brichard, who will assist the village to document his qualifications to apply for admission to the community rating system, CRS, and to become a climate smart community. I understand that the application deadline is the end of the week. Please do not delay taking the step to protect the village's future. The people of the village of Owego know about the challenges of living in close proximity to the Susquehanna River and its contributing creeks. We now have an opportunity to lower the village's flood insurance rates by giving concrete evidence that we are accomplishing FEMA compliant requirements and that we are being proactive in taking steps to reduce flood damages for all property owners. The OHPC interacts with many prospective property owners, and we encourage young families to settle in our wonderful community. Flood insurance costs and expensive energy ratings add to monthly mortgage payments frequently make the difference between purchasing a property here or choosing another community. We've had conversations with prospective commercial property owners too. As president of the Tioga Arts Council, I lead a board of directors dedicated to developing a vibrant, lively, and healthy downtown area. Empty storefronts do not welcome visitors or prospective homeowners to our area, nor do they contribute tax revenue. Easy access towards energy efficiency and reduction of flood insurance rates should be supported and become part of the village's planning for the future. Consider this a meat and potatoes of infrastructure investment. Please vote to support this motion. Sincerely, Nadine Bigsby. I'll email it to the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is it customary to stand up when you ask a question here, or what?
Please identify who you are.
If you can, I'm John Peterson. I live at George Street in a very flood-prone part of Owego, which is saying something for Owego. I just heard about this meeting today, thanks to Mayor Millar over here. And I was going to suggest that this whole proceeding be made more public in the sense of publishing everything that was going to be voted on. Obviously, if it's going to be has to be decided by the end of this week, that is not practical. So I'm just going to sit here quietly and listen to the proceeding.
But we do keep a record of it because it's online. It's everything is recorded.
Yeah, but you can't publish everything that's on the website so that people know the whole 10-point program, the incentives, the gold, the bronze, the silver, and then the lead for the other people maybe. That won't be available to talk about. So for the whole community, because my impression is from reading this thing is that it could have a big impact upon people. In other words, if there's an emissions problem, and people who burn wood, like I do sometimes, are we going to be grandfathered in? Is there a problem with that? The whole state of California has decided that no new construction will have any gas outlets connected to it. Is that part of this thing? So there's a whole it's important. So there's a whole bunch of questions that I think really we're going to impact a lot of people in the village. And I think the village probably should have a chance to vote on it in a referendum or whatever, because it could have a very big political impact going down the road. I may be completely off base. It's just my quick reading of the situation. And with that, I withdraw. I'll stay here, but I withdraw.
Jerry?
Hi, Jerry Wiley here. As you know, I was involved in the clean energy communities portion of this, and which is rather simpler, and yet we made our way through that without consultation. Climate smart communities I didn't really dive into because I had plenty of people who were coming to me asking for energy advice. I didn't need another job at the time. So I thought I better get up to speed because I heard about this meeting, and I thought I better have some kind of an input anyway, because maybe they need someone and maybe they don't. Maybe we can swing it with our new energy climate smart community representative in our area who's here tonight, Ashley Cypher. But then I found out that that's not true, though she would be working with this consultant, is my understanding. So it seems like because the climate smart communities piece, we might be able to muddle through and get some funding back to do wonderful projects for the area over a great amount of time, with Jamie's support, who you, I guess, read about last time, we hop on board faster and also deal with the very important resiliency piece of reducing people's the high payments for the insurance, which, you know, they have so many municipalities to deal with. That just wouldn't happen without a consultant. So what else was I gonna say? Something important, but I did want to introduce you. What am I not saying that's really important? I'll think about it afterwards, of course, when I'm not allowed to talk and Rusty will tell me.
I took those words from ex-mayor Kevin Ross, exactly when he would lecture me when I was in the audience.
So it seems like our part is very small in what we have to pay to get this expert consultation and move things forward in a way that's going to overall impact us, especially in Owego where 75% of us were flooded. If I think of it, I'm going to pop up.
Sister Mary?
Sister Mary O'Brien, Owego. I'm new to this as well, but very strongly in favor of anything that will help us with our climate. We have only to look around our world to see the devastation it's causing in many communities, especially those poor and vulnerable. What I so like Nadine Bixby, I would like to concur with her and support us becoming, the village becoming a climate smart community and a participant in the community rating system. I'm wondering, and hopefully this will be part of your conversation, I looked up all the current members of these various of this Augusta group. And we have our Broome County neighbor, so I'm wondering if anyone on the village board has talked with Broome. Great, thank you, Laura. And the other, in the community rating system participants, we've got the town of Big Flats, Camillus, Canandaigua, Corning, Elmira, City and Town, Horseheads Village, Horseheads Town, Johnson City. So I'm wondering too, if anyone has been in consultation with any of those people, understanding that anything related with FEMA, there's probably volumes and volumes of paperwork, but those who have been participants, these people have been participants mostly since 1991. So we're like really behind the times in moving forward on such a thing. But it seems to me that would be my first step if I was making a decision about this, just what does it involve and what are the pros, what are the cons, are there any cons, etc. So thank you.
I'm Cookie Schaefer, I'm not sure who I'm facing, she's my back. My husband Peter, we live on Front Street. I support the concept of becoming part of both these things. What I don't understand, what's coming before you tonight? Is it a consulting fee that will then tell us what the next step is, or is it the whole enchilada? So maybe somebody can tell me that.
So it's essentially us submitting an application and pledging that we will commit X number of dollars per year in the application to hopefully be awarded a 50-50 grant.
And are there steps along the way, or is it like, like is there stage gate? In my old profession, we had a stage gate process where if you got to here and if you pass go, then you keep going.
As far as the application,
Okay.
I'm not sure how the application works. Obviously, they all get submitted and then.
Well, I think it's the money part.
Yeah.
Tonight we're working on the money part of the application, and it's of the big Climate Smart Communities grant that everybody saw online. It's divided into these subsections, and we're just looking at the adaptive class of it. So some of the bigger counties and cities have plans that they're involving the electric cars and infrastructure like dams, bridges, big work. And what we're doing is adaptive plan. So it's a little simpler. It's what we're focusing on is what we have off of the Climate Smart check sheet. So we have it's what we're capable of, and what we have here that's on the list that we can work with, right? So we're mainly trying to focus our energies on the CSC initiatives of once we get in, we're able to take all this work that we've already done and get credit for it. And so we've done LED streetlight conversions and assessments of energy use in the buildings. And those are just little things that we've been doing. There's sections dealing with our emergency plans, heat emergencies, flooding emergencies, like emergency events with climate of all kinds. There's the section where we're trying to get into CRS, the community rating system. That's what would give us the discounts on the flood insurance for the entire community. So CRS is a different program than the Climate Smart Communities program. And we would use this this grant proposal. We're putting in $10,000 a year. We're proposing to put in $10,000 a year of our budget and $10,000 in kind work. The state would match that with $20,000 a year. So that would say that's the village paying $10,000 a year to get $30,000 of extra work done every year, and it gets us the consultant that does the work for us. Our village workers are stressed with what they're doing already, so the consultant would head up the task force. It would be our coordinator, our CSE coordinator, is what we're required to have, and would make sure that we go through all the priorities on the task list, that we're doing our job. The coordinator is on this online right now. You can't see her, but she's a CFM, Certified Floodplain Manager, and would be helping to train our employees also about what's going on. In our proposal, our code enforcement officer, McNabb, he agrees and sees the importance. He would go to, well, there's training. He would do training and the
Stretch code.
it's what's it called, the CFM training. So he would get that, the exam fee. The village would, pay for that with this, and the biannual review. And so we would be paying for our village to have a certified floodplain manager and their training. And so for our community, we desperately need a CFM. We flood an enormous amount of our village floods when it does, and so we need that for our village. So this would pay for that and a lot of other things. So this is a way that we're finding money, a little bit of money to find more money. So getting into the Climate Smart Communities program, at this time we're not looking to get up to bronze level at entry, but you get, when you're in, you get some credit too. And then there's like the bigger bronze and the silver things that are further on. But for right now, we're just looking at the entry, and we get a lot of grant possibilities from the entry. That can pay for future technical assistance and all kinds of things. When wait till we start the meeting. I was just trying to say to a little bit, but I don't know, I wanted to give a better part. We're still public comment, Rusty, I don't know.
Yes, I'd like to say something. I want to kind of summarize what she's talking about here. We've been looking at this stuff for quite a while now. You folks are new coming to it, and all of a sudden it's right here. We have a deadline of July 29th that this application has to be in if we want to try and get some state money in a grant. What we're sniffing at is getting a grant where they give us $20,000 each year for 5 years, $100,000 total. We are required to match that. We're required, when we submit this grant, to make a commitment that we will match that. We can match it in a couple of different ways. Part of it's called in-kind, but we must make a commitment. If we couldn't get any of this in-kind matching where somebody does some work and we can use that as a credit, we would have to match it with $20,000 of our own each year. If we get some of those other credits, we might be able to match it with some lesser money of our own. That's what we're talking about, is whether it's not just that we want to be in these things, it's what amount of money can we commit to it, how much money do we want to commit to it, for how long? Because at the end of this 5 years, there's likely to be an employee needed that's going to run this whole show. And we're thinking about that. Is that going to be $100,000, $70,000 employee and benefits? Do we have to we have to spend $100,000 after these 5 years for on and on and on? Can we afford that? Can we not afford that? These are all the things we're thinking about the money of it. Is that kind of giving you the general feel of it? So that's our thought tonight. Can we find the money? Do we want to put the money into this? And I'm sure there's more questions, but I want to kind of try and make that more clear.
So can I ask very quickly, what kind of in-kind services are going to be required from village residents, volunteers, employees? What are they referring to as in-kind?
That's a big question.
Complicated, right?
That's
So
what we're still trying to figure
But
out.
have you talked with anyone to find out what those are?
We have, but we can't get a straight
4
answer.
months.
From, what about from these communities?
I can answer. For the village resident to be a volunteer to help the village with the in-kind hours, we have the task force, where people interested citizens can come on and contribute towards the planning and all the activities of the project. And then there's also work parties and stuff. So the Kanawha Nature Preserve is part of the village of Owego. It's on property that the village acquired in a flood buyout program. There's like 15 of the properties we got in 2008. And so what we have over there are trails, a garden. They're developing it more, but that every hour that you can work over there at that, we get credit for at minimum wage. So Kevin is the project leader for Owego Rotary at the project, the Kanawha Nature Preserve, and so he himself is doing 448 hours a year at that project, and he would record all the rest of the volunteers working hours over there at that project too. So that's one portion where like anybody on the village can volunteer at like varying levels of expertise.
Thank you for that, because I think that's really important. As a member of this community and as someone who works at Owego County Rural Ministry, I'm very familiar with volunteerism. And this community goes above and beyond anytime you ask for help. And what's happening over there with Kevin's leadership has been instrumental to really improving that whole area. And so I just commend us. I just want to highlight the goals of the community rating system in light of what this gentleman said. The goals: reduce flood loss, facilitate accurate insurance rating, promote awareness of flood insurance. The flood insurance has recently gone up. My landlord just told me about that, and it only keeps going up and up. This is an opportunity for us to recoup some money, but also to put our support toward doing something good for the climate and for the people of our village who are in great need of that. So, one other thing, Laura, are you the only person on this board who has done any research with other communities who are part of the community rating system? Has anyone else talked with Broome County or with any of these others?
We actually had a village board meeting probably 6 months ago with FEMA and some of the other communities that joined that.
Okay, thank you.
That was about community rating system, not this community smart.
But that's part of what the proposal is, isn't it?
I'm just saying that when we did that, it was from the CRS, not the.
We didn't know this existed till about 2 months ago.
Pardon?
We didn't know this program existed till about 2 months ago.
Okay.
So we're still trying to get our ducks in a row. And we're trying to learn Greek in a very quick manner.
Understood.
Yep.
So, as you all heard a couple months ago, I'm willing to commit a whole lot of dollars just to do my own home. But that is just one piece of the puzzle, and we've got to prevent that from ever happening to anybody else. When in 2011, when it was more than 80% of taxable properties in the village that were substantially damaged, how can we not do this? I don't know how we can't. I know it's outlay of cash, and I really appreciate all of you being very good stewards of our tax dollars. I appreciate that hugely. For the future, as our flood insurance costs rise dramatically, as people like me have to put out tens of thousands, $200,000 to elevate, to the entire village dealing with insurance, to the cost of this building going up, and when you think about all the money that we put out so far, how can we not? I don't know how we can.
So the overview is that we send money to Albany, and if we're good, Albany will give us some of this back. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that false?
Only if we win the grant. So if we win the grant, they would match. So if we put in 20,000, they'll give us 20,000.
By winning, you mean what? Achieving gold?
No, so you have to, it's a grant application, so you have to be selected to receive the grant.
Awarded the grant.
I'm sorry?
But not winning, awarded the grant. The state chooses to give us the grant. Can I speak, Mike?
Yeah.
Ronnie, you
Probably gonna say the same thing I was going to.
So John, this whole thing would be us applying to the state for a grant. And if we get the grant, they will give the village of Owego $20,000 each year for 5 years of state grant money. We have to come up with our own $20,000 to match that money, and then that $40,000 we're supposed to spend, our own 20 and the 20 they give us, on various flood things, including this climate thing and the CRS thing and all other kinds of flood related things. And part of it is to do it, we're going to hire a consulting firm, and that person that you call the coordinator, to help us do this, because we're pretty much blind and we don't know what we're doing. So chunk of that money, most of that money will go to this consulting firm who will help us through all these pieces and paperwork and stages, setting things up, and eventually train some people here of ours to be able to do that sort of stuff. Is that a little more clear?
It's as clear as far as it goes. Rusty.
Yeah.
That's as clear as far as it goes. But
Well, it's complicated too.
It's clarity in the midst of general darkness is what it is.
Thank you very much. That's what we feel.
What it looks like to me. I just wish that Owego would extend the levy,
Yeah.
personally.
I'll talk to DEC about that.
I'll tell you about that
That's
later.
not the solution, please.
So I just want to read something. Somebody over there asked what this was really gonna do, and there was a paper produced that explained it a little bit. Year one is to set up a CSC, a Community Smart Communities Task Force, which would be residents of the village. The number is not known yet exactly yet, but it'd be 7 to 10 people. The more people you have, the more points you can get when you go to in-kind stuff. That task force will assess, document, and submit paperwork for credit for all existing village actions, which a lot of village actions that will count towards this have been done already, like all of the LED lights here and outside. For all existing village actions recognized by the CSC and create a CSC CRS overlay map. Year two would coordinate and implement prioritized actions of the task force, generate and submit paperwork to show full NFIP compliance. That means we have to do certain things to keep our NFIP insurance. Some of them have slid away in the past and they need to be rectified before we join the NFIP or the CRS, and that's a good thing because some of the things should have been dealt with when they were first built and weren't, just by oversight, accident, whatever, but they will be looked at and fixed. Year three would focus on the CRS and aim for community rating system entry. In year three, the initial entry is a guaranteed 5% savings on everybody's flood insurance. It can go up as you do more of the things that they want you to do, basically to educate the people, to try to prevent flooding, mitigate flood damages, and get out of harm's way. So in year three, if you continue implementing the task force priorities, the task force, once again, is comprised of local residents, some with professional flood or engineering expertise, some without. You don't always need engineering expertise to use common sense. Year four would manage the CRS project and document the program for the village and start to transition CRS CSC responsibility to the village and focus on bumping up the CRS class, which means get to a different category so you get more percentages off of your flood insurance premiums. And year five, which is very important really, is fully transferring the CSC and the CRS coordinator to a local person. And my expectation is that by the time that happens, there's a system and process, so it's not an exorbitant amount of work for somebody. I think, I'm not even gonna name a number, but it's not as complicated as some people would make you believe. A lot of the stuff that they have to do for the CRS, we're doing already. We're filing our flood elevation certificates that are generated by Williams and Edsel. We are answering phone calls for people that have questions about flooding and flood levels, and that counts towards CRS points. There's a lot of stuff that we already do that we really aren't getting a bang for our buck for credit with the state and with grants. So I forgot to say I'm in favor of this proposal.
Rusty?
So gang, how's it going with all these acronyms? How's that working for everybody? CBTV, NFPI, it's confusing.
NFIP is National Flood Insurance. Well, I know, you know, after a while, you break the alphabet on the wall.
Another thing, it's part of the program is you have to buy special computer software. But that will help us in recording all the points and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, actually, recent information is that that's probably more expensive than we want to even think about buying right now. It's $7,500, and we wouldn't need that for 3 years anyway. So I would say that that is not a thing to consider for tonight's deliberation.
Yeah, we weren't gonna concentrate on that tonight. We got a decrease, or an offer for a decrease in the annual fee to just $5,000 a year once it's needed for Forerunner. But we don't have to buy it. We would only buy it when we would need to use it. And that would be when we were successfully into the CRS, and that's when we would buy it. And so what what we would be planning for that portion is to get help, after getting into the CSC and the clean energies and using those grants for further technical assistance to get the software and things like that to help out with those portions. So we wanted to stick with what we're doing instead of just because this the Forerunner software is an expense that we aren't committed to. We don't have to have, and it's just something we're including that we would like to get, and the amount for if we could get it covered. So if, say we get it covered by a donation, that's our budget money that we're putting in for that portion. So if we aimed for year 3 or year 4 for applying into the CRS, so say if we got it in year 4, that's when we would start needing that software for that. And so we built that in there to notate it, but that it's an expense that we would be trying to get at that point, because where we have to spend the money on the first few years goes to the consultant directly, and then we have the more money left over towards the end when we're phasing the consultant out, where we're putting our funds in from the village to paying for the software, the CFM fees and the renewal, and for the replacement coordinator. So the consultant is the coordinator at the start, but we want to transfer it to somebody to be a coordinator here. And so we get their training too, and we pay for their training. So these are further things that are further down in the budget in year 4 and 5. So we have 10,000 each year in those years for these extra expenses.
Rusty?
Sorry. So we can't educate you folks on this. We barely know this stuff ourselves. We cannot explain it to you in great detail. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things that we would get out of this is that this consulting firm that does this stuff and knows this stuff can get us on all the right tracks, and also they're grant people. So what we're hoping if we do this is that they will find and help us get more grants as we move along for all kinds of places and parts and stuff. So that's one of the things we're trying to get, is them to train us, them to run the show that we don't have the people to run for the next 5 years, and train us along and help us get grants, and hopefully all these acronyms and places that we're trying to get will lead to the reduction in flood insurance. That's our biggest thing. Am I kind of, once again, kind of tried to?
I'm afraid you make it too simple.
I'm trying to do that for you especially,
Deliberately
John.
oversimplifying.
Because to not is.
You can't get me up to speed.
No, I can't do it.
Impossible. Life's been trying to.
Are we good with public comment?
Yes, I'm sorry to be talking so much.
So I'm in favor of moving forward with this, but I'm wondering, like, I just keep hearing reasons we will, and that you've looked into it. Is there a reason that you would not move forward with it? I haven't heard anything about, like, why this isn't gonna happen.
Sure, Ron your brand.
It comes down to money.
Okay.
Budget. We can't get it concrete on in kind. We have to be able to come up with $20,000 of actual cash from your tax base. And that's our primary concern. We need a concrete, or at least semi-concrete, in-kind number to know what we're committing to. Because ultimately, we're not responsible to just people in this room in the whole village.
Right.
And we have to be responsible stewards of the tax base. I mean, I don't think it's a question of if we want to do this, is can we afford it? Because we've all, I think 90% of it's not flooding. We understand the empathy with that. But we also can't drain the banks to do this on something that may not pan out if it's not feasible.
I guess my addition to that comment is our budget for next year, which starts next week, is already set, passed. So if we do this, we have to find $10,000 to $20,000 inside that budget to not spend on something we said we're gonna put in this.
I just want to address the question of in-kind, because I know it's a big one and on the village's mind, and you want to make sure that it happens. And I just wiped out what I was gonna read from there. But I'll switch to this. Personnel services in the village, about 1% of, my guess is around 1% of the time will be spent on this by village employees. The DPW superintendent, administrative staff in DPW, code enforcement, somebody at the village office is gonna have something to do with this. That would generate around $4,125 a year. The CSA task force, if they meet 4 hours a month, that would generate $4,400. There's a course at the Cornell that we just recently got word that would give us $5,000 in credit. There's a lot of ways to get in-kind services. In my opinion, it's not really going to be very hard to get 10 grand worth of in-kind services. I can understand your concern that if it doesn't happen, you got to cough up the 10 grand. But Julie especially, and Laura have been working many hours on this. I see they got the Canawani committee as almost $6,000. I just want to say I brought a chair down there today because I need a place to sit. But I just want to stress that in-kind, I think should be, I wouldn't say easily attainable, but not a big hurdle.
I have no doubt we can get in kind, we just need a ballpark of what we believe we can achieve annually, like that class in Cornell, is that a one-time deal, or is that an annual thing where we'll get so much credit for that? I mean, these are things that we have to really be concerned with.
Usually it's the same recipe for what counts for in-kind year after year, and I would envision the same numbers that I just said, especially for the task force, being generated going forward, in the future.
And in a few moments, we're going to ask Jamie Richard, who is the potential consultant from this firm, who's doing the application for us. If we send it forward, we're going to ask her specifically about in-kind and what things are qualified, how hard is it, and how much can we do. We're going to ask her those specifics. We have to ask around, and people are trying to find it, but we're going to ask her more detailed things, I assume.
Yeah, I got a couple questions, just looking at the layout of kind of what the project is. Years 3 through 5 really focus on the CRS and how adaptable is it if we don't end up in a CRS, because we know, all of us probably in this room know there's one hurdle to getting into that we don't know if it can happen, because it's a large investment from somebody to fix an issue that we don't know if that's going to happen. And it's not a municipality, so.
And I pointed out earlier that we have concerns about after these 5 years, how much is all this stuff? There's a thought that it's not going to be very much work and it's going to be easy, but there's also a thought that we're going to need a full-time coordinator and somebody to write grants and somebody to administer them and secretary, and how much staff do we need to do this stuff after 5 years? We're concerned about that. We don't know.
Jamie
will help us. And we're going to ask her some things here.
Maybe you can just read who is on the line here.
Yeah, so we have Todd from NYSERDA, Cornell, and Jamie. Yeah, Todd's helped us out with some of our other climate smart communities. We've actually successfully, with what Jerry was talking about, have, with some of the actions that we've taken credit for in the village, like the LED streetlights, the what was the energy?
100% renewable for 2 years.
Right. And a couple of the other things, we've gotten $5,000 grant, which was no match in the past for those. We're almost at a $10,000 grant.
And I think if you get 600 more points in the clean energy communities, you get a grant of $10,000.
Yeah, get another one.
And 600 points. Well, actually, I think getting into the CSC can give you 600 points, but 600 points isn't a big hurdle. And 10K is not a bad number.
No.
Maybe we can use that to pay this.
Yeah, that is part of those sources that we get extra that can pay for this, that is in our budget. It goes into our budget and then goes for this.
So we've talked, I've certainly talked too much, we've talked too much, it's your turn to talk, so once again, anybody that has to
Do
do
we
it,
have
now
anything
is the
else
time.
before we talk to Jamie? Or you all good? All
Information.
right, so we'll move past that, we'll go to Jamie.
Let's still public comment.
Yeah, whatever. People have stuff
What
to
do you
say.
want?
Jamie, are you online?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I guess tell us what we're going to say, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Now, I guess tell us kind of maybe where we went wrong if you've been listening.
Well, I guess, so if I'm understanding what the concern is, and you're asking me to address the concern of what happens after the 5 years. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's one of them. Yeah.
One of them. I have worked with, let's see now, I've been doing this water resources planning work for a number of years. The community rating system program is certainly a program that is not well used in New York State, largely because of the issues that most of you have addressed tonight with just capacity and resources. We are a home rule state, which means our governance structure is at the very local level. So when it comes to land use authority and kind of floodplain management, it comes down to either the village or a town level, not a county. And that's a challenge for participating in the program because of, again, the issues of capacity. So in lots of other states in the country, there's just better participation because it's at the county level and they have, staff and resources to administer the program. So in my understanding of the program, and I've advocated in New York State for a number of years, there's never been any funding available, really, up until the Climate Smart Communities program, to get money to municipalities to pursue the CRS. So the fact that there is now money in the Climate Smart Communities program to pursue CRS is kind of a very special thing, because up until, I would say, just a couple of years ago, this conduit has not existed. However, municipalities are still obviously a little challenged with moving forward because of the issues of capacity. The unsure of being, what do we do after, your concerns of 5 years, having someone like myself assist the community and assist the staff and personnel and other volunteers kind of go through the program. So it's a valid concern, and I understand that. I do think, though, that the way this program is set up, and that we have 5 years to figure all of that out. And I don't think there's anything now that the community isn't doing that this couldn't be learned. So, for example, I think once we take the time to set up the program, and, I'm kind of the kind of person where I don't know if you need the software either. I think really part of what I would like to see happen is to, just create record keeping. It's documentation and record keeping. That's what CRS is. We can set up some good systems in the early years, even just using, Microsoft Excel, doing some database management, working with different people in Village Hall on record keeping and documentation. One of the credits that you can get for in the CRS is just answering questions. The paperwork you have to submit to the CRS program for credit is show us your log of questions that were answered. So it's stuff like that. And I think once you set up a system, and I think this is for any kind of record keeping, right? Whether you do stuff at the Village Hall, or even just, thinking about budget management at home. Once you establish a system and you get used to doing it, it's not, I think the first part is just kind of setting it all up. And that's where I think that fundamental 5 years will be very important. And I feel very strongly that just with existing staff, this program can be managed at a very conservative level. And I know there might be some different thoughts on going in on, well, how aggressive do we want to go into the CRS? Well, maybe the answer is you just go in, kind of at a higher rate and you kind of see how it goes and then you move forward. I've worked with the town of Greece for a number of years now in Monroe County, and they went in at a 9. And then over the years, as they felt more and more comfortable with the program, they went for more points. So that's certainly an approach that we could work with the village of Owego in setting up the CRS. And what's another really benefit to this program is that as we're building the program in CRS, well, you're also building your climate smart communities program, because both work hand in hand. So if we're documenting work for one, a lot of the same activities can be crossed over to the climate smart communities program. And what's nice about the Climate Smart Communities program is that that's a state program. It's a New York State program. CRS is federal, national. Climate Smart is state. And so, and that program is going to really get more and more dynamic as the Climate Act and a lot of different programs start coming down the pike in terms of meeting climate goals in New York State. So I really feel like if the village can get in there now into that program and start building activities there as grants become available and monies become available for implementation, you'll be set up very nicely with being able to access that. And I don't think it's anything that you couldn't already do with existing staff with a little bit of coaching. And Barton and Lujudas does a lot of, grant writing and assistance. And it's something that we could just roll into kind of moving forward if the village is interested. I don't necessarily think, again, I can't look into a crystal ball. I don't know where we're going to be in 5 years, where we start out and where we end up. Is that going to be a full-time person, a part-time person? Is it a volunteer? Can the distribution of labor be kind of spread across a number of different personnel? That's what we're going to explore in this 5-year startup. And I feel very confident in my ability to help the village lead you in that direction. I've been very successful getting money from Monroe County in pursuing a CRS regional pilot program through the same program in 2019. And they're still working on the program right now. So I'm not their consultant, however, so I've got a really long history of working, hand in hand with municipalities. I worked in public sector for over 13 years. I've only recently been working in private consulting for the past 3. So I really do empathize with what the villages, all the work that you're doing and working with different organizations and capacity building and just trying to be very creative about putting together a budget. And you've got a lot of great stakeholders in your community that I've been meeting. I went down to meet with lots of business owners and kind of meet some community members last week, and it was a great privilege and it's a great community, and I would really love to work with you and meet some of your climate goals. So I know it was a very long-winded conversation right there. I hope I answered some of your concerns, but I'm happy to take some more questions.
Rusty has plenty.
Yes, Jamie, one of the things we keep going round and round about is in kind. So what we need to know from you is, some of us believe that this in kind is going to be very easy and that we have all kinds of things going on in volunteers and we can come to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 of in kind with a snap of the fingers, no problem. How is this going to work? Is it as easy as some of us are thinking that it might be, or is this way more difficult and complicated than that? Give us a little bit of a feel on in kind.
So my understanding as well is that with the in-kind is really kind of another documentation exercise. So if we're really good at record keeping and keeping track of people that spend or volunteer their time, and what's nice about the Climate Smart, the task force and the CRS program, as I've mentioned, it's a multi-beneficial kind of a program. So it's multifaceted, and that there's a lot of different areas that we could kind of garner that in-kind work for. It's volunteer hours. Who's donating their time to different types of work? And to be honest with you, this happens a lot. I'm working on an all hazard mitigation plan update for a county, and I am keeping track of elected officials participating in public meetings and other interviews on behalf of the county who got the grant from New York State Homeland Security dishes, and in kind, labor with the elected officials spending their time on attending, again, presentations and workshops and other staff time. I'm helping them record that for that grant. So it's fairly common, this in-kind, again, contribution in other different grant programs as well. And I think we can get there. We just got to make sure that we do a good job of record keeping and keeping track of our time. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. We actually have created for the all hazard mitigation plan update, and we are working directly with the Office of Emergency Services on an online program where people can just go right online to a link and put their name, the date that they've spent time on a meeting or did some reading or did some kind of group work, recorded their time, hit enter, and go up to the cloud it goes, and we got it in an Excel spreadsheet. It can be as simple as that. I think if you can be really creative with people, and as I mentioned, as I heard before, that this is a very we've got a lot of great people in the community that are willing to kind of put their time towards different committees and projects and workshops. I think we can easily get to that $10,000 number.
So Jamie, a question I have is, how rigid is the grant? So let's say we apply for it and we're awarded and I haven't seen the application, but in the grant application, are we just applying for money to do anything on that huge spreadsheet you sent, or are we specifically applying for money to do these specific things?
We are going to apply to establish a 5-year work plan and to accomplish different tasks in each year. So in year 1 would be looking to kind of gather existing conditions, kind of where are we in terms of the CRS and the Climate Smart program. And then from there, you're going to build the program. So we're going to look at all of the activities and just start building kind of like a work plan around that. And it could be any one of those activities that are on those spreadsheets. We just have to get into it, and we have to build a program based on what we kind of dig up and what we record. And, we might find things we didn't even know about. But that's why we have that 5-year work plan, because you have to start with existing conditions and kind of like a capacity assessment. And then from there, kind of figure out, as we build the program, what direction do we want to go in? And I think that's going to be an open dialogue that organically evolves over those 5 years.
So does this template, is that something you think that would be acceptable to the state as we're using these monies and showing that we're following what they want? This kind of a template would satisfy them, you believe?
Yes, I would. And as we get, and with the state, with that template, they have something called a portal where you upload your documentation. So when we feel that we've successfully completed an activity, we would go into this portal, upload the documentation, and get credit for it. And that's for the Climate Smart Communities program. And again, that's what we would be helping you with, is to kind of document all of these activities and submit it to the portal, and then it would register the village, and you'd get these points.
So let me go back to the in-kind thing and ask you another quick question about that. On the printout that we have, it uses an example. If we have a 6-member task force that meets monthly for 5 hours each month for a year, that would come up to $10,800 of in-kind service. That's what this suggests here. Is that something that's realistic? Is that correct?
That's a different picture than the latest. What you're reading from, Rusty, is an older copy than what we're maybe looking at. So what you're reading from is a sheet that has at a value for contracted services instead of for the volunteer hours. So the sheet you're looking at, we had the wrong figure for a portion.
Okay, so what's the right figure?
The right figure, the It's this newer one that I handed you in,
Okay.
today. So what
I do
we're.
one for today, okay.
Today, all
I don't
right.
have-
So this, I these out to each of the members and then one for each side of the audience. And Jeannie has it, as well. So let me just sort of summarize what you see on this page. The top is the money, that the village would put in, 10,000 a year. We can take it from CHIPS, which is the highway money fund. We get money from the state, AIM, and pilot fees. So the grant said that we could take it from all of those as or our general fund or DPW line. So that's where our cash money would come from. The in-kind work that we're talking about, what we're showing right here is personnel services of the village working on this. So our conservative estimate for a year was 10 to 12 hours monthly of everybody's combined time. So while people are sitting in meetings, and, we're recording that. When they're answering calls, the village workers about the elevation certificates, they record those hours. So the village time is captured, like the attorney and members have to sit in on the planning board and the zoning board and our meetings when we're doing certain actions. We would get credit for that too. All the officials and the personnel that are working on it. In that class, we estimated $4,125 a year for them. And then additionally, the code enforcement officer getting, doing more work on the CFM. So we said that that would take about 60 hours to get. And then he would be working about 4 hours per week on doing flood management duties for the village. That's really conservative because he'd be working on flood management stuff for the village. Dramatically more of that, I'm sure, at this time. But we didn't put a figure for that. We are only including the conservative estimate for just the village's work that would be recorded. And then we moved on to the non-personnel services. So that's all the volunteers of the task force. So what we have is an estimate of $4,485 for the portion of the task force that would consist, at this consideration would be monthly meetings, having about 7 members at 2 hours, working subcommittee monthly meetings, probably 3 members working about 2 hours, and outside reading and preparation, 2 hours a month. We wanted to be, we wanted to keep it real. So that's 264 hours a year. That is at minimum wage, whatever it is current, and currently it's $13.20 per hour. The Kiwanis committee would be a portion, like another subcommittee of that, and just Kevin, as the project leader of what he committed working over there, is 448 hours at minimum wage. Kevin alone, working over there, is contributing $5,910 in kind work a year. And then we would also record all the volunteers that are also putting in their hours over there. The next portion is donated professional services. They get billed at their professional rate, or they get credited for their that rate that they would be working at if they were working at their job. So the professional donated services, Jeannie Benucci, we listed, that's a landscape architect. There's a college course. If this was used, and this was a $5,000 a year commitment, if it works for us, that is something with the landscape architect It can be things that are the climate smart attributing. So one example was for the course students, there would be 5 students, and they do something like 70 some hours a year. But one of the projects, suggested projects, would be providing the landscape design drawings for the elevated houses of people that were interested in the elevations in the village. So it would just be an extra way that we were adding into the program with having the professional services donated. And another is Lisa Craig. I can't remember the professional expertise, but that 8 hours at 175 per hour. It came out to $1,400, but it's a 1 year only commitment just for that person. So I didn't know how to show this over 5 years, but the estimate of the village salary portion, the task force portion, the Panawana subcommittee, that comes out to 13,500 of in-kind, and it does not include the code enforcement officers hours working as doing CFM duties, and it doesn't include any donated professional services. So what we're showing is the part that we know continue as 13,500 per year. And so what we're asking the village to trust that we're doing of that is the 10,000. So what we're showing is that we're going to be doing more than 13K in-kind work, but we're only committing to recording the hours and showing that we're gonna at least we're gonna do 10K a year, but we show that we have more of that in-kind work that we're doing to do it.
It's safe to do it that way then.
Yeah, we don't want
Best to go under than over.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess my only concern with the in-kind, like the Kanawani committee, that's great, but it doesn't move the ball forward on any of the things in the list we're trying to do.
And along those lines, Jamie, if you heard all that stuff, is all that stuff practical? Are you on board with everything that Laura just said? Are all those things likely things that we can use for in-kind?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, Mike, one thing I was wondering about is with the improvements we're doing through the DRI at Marvin Park and also the North Avenue Park. I mean, if we put in LED lights or solar lights in there, would that count towards this?
I think that's what Mike was alluding to, when he asked Jamie the first question, and I didn't really get a clear answer on that.
I mean, I think the money can only be used for what we apply for, right? It's not, right, Jamie, we can't use the money for like anything off of that list, like installing LED lights or stuff like that.
So the money that we're requesting from the CFA, the Consolidated Funding Application, would be to do the work of the Climate Smart program. You're paying for the technical assistance. The in-kind hours could be more of, I guess, activities that could show the work. And again, without really kind of like figuring out what specifics are, you don't really know until you get into it. But anything on that list that we can show that the volunteers can do with their time would be used for that documentation.
So I have a question. So in-kind have to be hours, or can it be like physical projects?
We have to list them now. to use them. But we can have funding out. We just have to list it to get credit for it. We have to list it now to get credit for it.
But if I donate $10,000 piece of equipment, does that count? I think is where Mike is going.
Well, I guess,
If it's listed that you wanted that $10,000 equipment.
Well, we don't know
And
what
then-
in kind is at this point.
Yeah, when they're all.
That's
where I'm
what we're
going is
still-
like, if we put in like electric car charging station, that's one of the things in the grant.
That's not the part of the grant that we're working on.
That's what we're
Can
trying
we
to.
claim all
So what,
$10,000 as in kind?
so you know how we got the Excel check sheet and so we had a couple of working parties and we looked through about what the village currently has and what we're doing. And we, and so, all right, so let's put it this way. The task force is gonna get together and we, as a village, prioritize what it is that we're working on. All of the, we set standards, we do all these projects, record keeping, we get the village in order, right? The village has standards for projects. When you're working on climate smart community things, we're working towards smart improvements for the future. It's going to help us catch up to what the state's doing. The state has I forget the acronym, but it's a big program, and everybody's going to have to get with it. In some years, we have to. There's going to be new regulations that we're going to have to meet. Our wastewater treatment plant is a year and a half ahead of schedule in meeting those. And so we're going to have a bunch of things that we'll have to catch up on, but we're only doing a selected portion, the adaptation portion of what you're looking at the grant. So everything that you saw about the electric cars, we don't have that in our proposal that we're going for. So it's like we're not in this proposal. It's just what we're doing here for getting.
So this is strictly flood management.
Yes.
That's the question we
Yes.
want to answer.
Right.
Yes.
That's all we need to know.
We're looking for a certified floodplain manager for the village. We're looking for the village to be able to come up to compliance with the National Floodplain Insurance Program.
Right, we get all that. I mean, I really don't want to cut you off, but that's the only question we had was can we fluctuate or is it strictly flood management?
And do our in-kind things have to be related to that?
Our in-kind projects are working on climate smart activities, for
But that's
sure.
where it gets raised, the climate smart activities. I got a list of 75 items. That's why we needed that specified flood management, or can it be fuel efficiency or water?
We're not doing the,
And
yeah,
the
we're not
person
doing the
supposed
fuel
to be asking
portion.
is up there.
Yes,
And it's-
Yeah, no, we're doing an adaptive portion strictly of what we proposed in the 5-year overview. Explained it the best. It was working on the CSC priorities, working on getting into the CRS entry, and having the CFM, having the village have a CFM. Those are the 3 goals. If we get into the CSC and we're doing all our activities and we're in there, we have our eligibility for all the further grants
Well, I guess
or things that we need to do. So
the reason I asked about the physical stuff was because if we could do other things off that list and it counts as in kind, we can bump up our contribution pretty easy. Which means the 50% the state gives us is more money.
yeah, the thing is we have to list it now for the whole 5 years.
So Jamie, can I speak now?
So is it only hours or is it physical projects?
What anticipated physical item or expense would be listed on this budget summary that we send for it. So is there something specific you were thinking of that we don't have?
Well, I mean, we're just always doing something off that list, I think, Rusty.
Yeah.
So Jamie, part of our budgetary consideration on this is how much money is needed for you and your firm. So we have a proposal here that we might do 20 from the state, 20 from us. And if we came up with 10 in kind, that would mean 10 cash from us, 20 cash from the state, 30 cash to go to your services. What would happen if we came up with 20 in kind, no cash from us, 20 from the state, then there would only be 20 cash for your services? What would happen under that scenario? Would that exist? Would that be a possibility? Would that be too little?
Well, it just would mean that, like anything else, like, you know, you're buying a certain number of hours for our technical assistance,
Right,
right?
we would get less.
Yes, right. So then your
Right.
volunteers would have to do more. Your staff would have to do more. Yeah.
So one of the things that Mike might be referring to here is, what if we could come up with 20,000 in kind? Maybe then and we wanted to put 10 cash in, then we could do 30 from the state, 10 cash from us, 20 in kind from us. Even have it, that give 40,000 for your firm, so you can even do more for us. These are some of our considerations of numbers and how we're going to try to put this together. But do you see where I'm going on that?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Is that kind of another picture?
So I guess Jamie is, so as far as in kind goes, do only hours count, or do like I was saying, like some of those project, like can we count costs of projects that we did, they're climate more?
I think as long as there are local dollars, right? You're not using state dollars to do the projects. If it's local projects that are in the spirit of the program, like if you're spending, you know, local village dollars to build some type of you know, flood attenuation or a wetland or a park or something, yes, it just can't, it has to be local. You can't match the state with state, right? Yeah.
We figured we couldn't use DRI stuff because they won't let you double dip. But don't take this as it's a specific, but it's not. So we're putting a guardrail in the cemetery, and somehow it was flood related. It cost us 40 grand to buy the guardrail to put in there, but it was flood related. Would we be able to use that money that we spent from our own money to put that guardrail that we know isn't flood related, but was flood related? Would that be something we could do? That's the idea of the mayor's question.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of stuff we do anyway.
Some, you know, whatever that thing might be that would actually be floodplain, flood related. So we are in kind that we use for the hours, but can we also use the in kind for the generator, for the visitor, or whatever that we bought?
There's some.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Some stuff
I don't know.
like
We're
that.
just another question.
Some of that was what we're seeing of the larger thing, not the adaptive portion. So the big buying things for the types of programs that we're not working on, the capital projects of buying those things. If we were working on that portion of the grant, we'd be talking about the cost of the bridges and the cost of the culverts and the cost of the electric charging stations, and that's not the type of this Climate Smart Community program we're working on. We're just working on this adaptive response portion.
So no offense to you, we just wanted to hear Jamie tell us that stuff.
Yeah.
We paid her, essentially we'll pay her because she's the professional. I don't want to disrespect what you know. We need her input.
I think any kind of 10K is conservative.
But
That'd be great.
say we did have an activity of a flood-related expense that we encountered unexpectedly during this project. We will have to meet it by using whatever we've developed in our help to get to it, but we didn't list it at the beginning of the project as something that we were doing with the money. We have to list everything that we're doing, and including the in-kind tasks right now at submission for the 5 years.
How can we possibly look 5 years in the future and know what we're gonna do in 5 years?
From my understanding is DEC will be, you're allowed to make modifications. So you can change things. So they want you to list out, like, come up with things that you think you're gonna do, so you have a good plan, and you can always modify that by talking.
Like our trustee Van Houten is very involved in the cemetery. There's a lot of flood issues that happen up there. There's a lot of money put into directing that flood water in a very appropriate manner. Would that be considered in kind? I think it's one of the things we're asking. Because I mean, the water starts uphill and it comes down. There's no mistaking that.
We pay for 99% of that, right?
Right, and that's where, I mean, where I think Mike is coming in with the physical aspect. We buy rock, we buy whatever we buy.
From my understanding, yeah. What in kind is supposed to be, what's nice about it is it's usually a lot of things that you're already doing. That's what I find with communities I'm working with.
We're very blessed with a community that is super involved.
Yeah.
And very educated and capable. I mean, I hate to take advantage of that, but if you're doing it, we might as well.
Right.
One great example that I got from talking to Broome County was after they got into the Climate Smart, when they had a capital improvement project for culvert work, they were able to get extra grant funding to do that work because of their Climate Smart status. So that's something for us for the future. When we're in the Climate Smart, we have access to those further funding opportunities from the state, and that it makes me think about our problem with the underpass. And they also got money to put in remote monitors for the in Broome County for the places where they had trouble reading the flooding. During flooding, they'd have trouble reading the monitors. So this added a grant for adding wireless remote reading. So if something like that would be beneficial for us for the underpass, to know, to get alerted that it's flooding. It's something that that also coincides with the emergency alert program. We already have that, and so we'd be getting credit for all the programs that we already have. And the task force would work on improving them and developing things further. So
there's another one, right? So we, on our own, buy the emergency notification system, mainly because we flooded. We need to be able to call everybody. That's like $3,000 a year we pay for that. Is that in kind?
Yes, that is one of the things that we pay for that we can include on the sheet, that we are currently spending our money directly on that. Yeah. So there's a sheet that we're going to write all these things that the village does on for our portion.
Well, I guess what tonight we need to call for our numbers, so we kind of got to know what those things are.
Well, yeah, we're coming up with our number.
So Mike, remind me who TC is?
So that's Todd. He is with Cornell Cooperative Extension, and he is the Clean Energy Communities Coordinator.
Like the lighting and stuff.
Okay. Would he have input that we want to hear at this time? I don't know.
You can ask him.
I don't
know how much he knows about this grant.
Hi, I can go ahead and provide some input. I'm very familiar with the Climate Smart Communities program. So, you've been talking a lot about in-kind use matches. So and you're in the right track. From my understanding, though, is your in-kind match has to be applied to the project or projects that you have received funding for from DEC. So, one example of that is the Village of Montour Falls received DEC Climate Smart Communities funding for organic waste management program back in 2019. With that grant funds, they used volunteer hours from the Cornell Cooperative Extension and their Master Gardener program and to do composting education and organic waste management. And they counted that over the course of multiple years towards their in-kind match to the money they received from the DEC.
Now that seems to imply that we can't use money down at.
It would have to be toward this.
It has to be towards these things on our bullet thing, so we wouldn't be able to use in kind down that Kevin's doing down at the thing. That seems to imply that. So then we have a disconnect here about how this works. That's which is one of our problems from before.
The nature preserve is a
Flood mitigation?
it's on our using our property. It's got trails. It's recreational, and it does apply as an activity of using our open space.
It has nothing to do with CRS.
I mean, like, is this our perception or is this fact from the state?
It's our use of our.
I understand.
Our flooded
Does the
out
state feel the
property.
same way about this land that we do?
It's
This is what
just
we
like
need to know.
how we have the LED streetlights. We have
But
a
LED
nature
streetlights have
preserve.
nothing to do with CRS, as we just saw.
What's that?
See, the streetlights have nothing to do with what we're trying to do here, because it doesn't involve flooding, right?
Yeah, same as the nature preserve, that doesn't help us get into the community rating system.
Well, so the community rating system is the federal program for flooding stuff. The CSC is the Climate Smart Community. It's a state program dealing with climate stuff, not only flood related.
Circular conversation is killing me.
So
I mean, we're just going in circles and giving the same information. We asked questions, we said, can we use this towards this? No, and now you're saying yes. It's very complexing to me.
Jamie, we just confused ourselves again by talking about, and he's telling us about how that in-kind stuff has to be, and before we're talking about how indirect it can be. So we're getting confused again.
Okay, so let me just reiterate here directly from the grant. Okay, in-kind match. So let's just read what it says and respond to it. Okay, personnel services. Okay, salaries of staff, including fringe, directly devoted to project implementation. Real property. That can be used for in-kind match if there's a cost of acquisition of land. That is directly related to the proposal, okay? In-kind equipment use. So that could be anything that would apply to, again, the direct implementation of the project, volunteer time, and donated professional services. That's what it has as the in-kind match. The cash match can be anything related to contractual services, equipment, travel, supplies and materials, or the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So if you have any CWCRF loans, that can be used as the eligible match. So if I am reading this as it's written, if it doesn't fall into that category, so for projects, if it's not considered either real property or in-kind equipment, or travel or supplies and materials, then I would say if we're interpreting the grant, I would say no. Let's not include it.
So let's go back to the thing that goes on down at the river, the hours of the Kanawha committee hours that they do various things down there. Would that would that count? Is that something that is towards this project? What are you doing down there, Kevin?
Planting trees and shrubs.
Planting trees and shrubs in the floodplain. Would that be something that would be?
Yes, I would say the volunteer time for that labor could be directly related to the project implementation because it's in floodplain management. And there's a number of different areas in the grant application that we could show, like riparian buffer work or things like that.
So, Jamie, what about like drainage issues in the cemetery? So that's flood mitigation, but the cemetery is not in floodplain.
But it contributes to the water under that.
Right. It's impacted by flooding from heavy rain, and when it rains, it basically floods going downhill. It doesn't just sit around.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is the state is not going to turn away any volunteer hours. I mean, you can be very creative in how you write up your volunteer hours, and the state will never turn it away. It can even be, you can get high school students to contribute, towards classwork, or, like college students. I've done a lot with using college students and having research papers be conducted, and logging their time for in-kind hours. I think volunteer hours is probably the easiest form of documentation that the state will approve.
Jamie, did they audit this at any point? I mean, 'cause there's a lot of paperwork, I imagine there's an audit potential somewhere.
Well, they are going to request the documentation, so it's not really an audit so much as it's your, in order to get the cash from the state, you're showing your in kind, so you're kind of proving the work. You're submitting and you're getting what's it called? You're getting reimbursed.
So all the stuff gotta be in order.
As long as we cross our T's and dot our I's, we should be okay.
It's an audit the whole time, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right.
So that's.
So I guess, Jamie, what the project that we're specifically applying for is this thing that you laid out in the Word document, right? Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
So that, I mean, that is the grant application, right?
That's the work plan right there. Yes.
So our in-kind services would have to relate back to those tasks in year 1 through 5.
Right, which is a litany of all the different activity areas.
Jamie, if we complete this 5 years, we do great, and the state is happy with us, what's the likelihood of getting other grant opportunities?
Very, very good. You will be seen as a community that can be, that is committed and is a good investment for the state.
That was my suspicion, I just wanted you to clarify it.
All right, so let's talk budget just for a second here. And of course, one of the proposals we had, we talked about a $40,000 one, and we thought that was too much money for us to obligate to. And we have a proposal here for 20,000, which we would have to make an obligation of 20,000. We are now a little more comfortable with the idea that we can come up with 10,000 or more in kind, if everything we're hearing is correct. That would make this a more feasible number for us to try and do. And that's just with the 10 and 10. If we actually come up with more than 10 and in kind, we'll have less cash to pay Barton, and we'll get whatever we get from them. If we give them the 30 in the first year, we'll get $30,000 worth of work from them. If we do it more in kind and put in less cash for whatever reason, we'll get $25,000 or $20,000 worth from them. We understand all that. So those are the number fields. We've talked about it a lot. How are we leaning on this, folks?
I'm pretty comfortable with all the answers I've got.
Are you comfortable with them?
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable, yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I think with all the research that has been done, thank you, Laura. Yeah,
A lot of work.
everybody, a lot of work has been done, satisfies my thirst for what was happening, what's going on. After all is said and done, after all the ifs are answered, we just gotta figure out where we get this money to put towards that.
The 10 cash, the potential 10 cash. And one time we could, and we're gonna run out of this. One time we can take it out of a line item in the DPW budget and replace that line item with some ARPA money. We can't use the ARPA money for this, but we can use the ARPA money for a $10,000 thing we're buying for the DPW, and take that money out and do this. We can do it this year. We can't. We have no idea what we're going to do next year or the year after that, and 5 years, but we can do it now.
We'll be able to plan for it as of next year.
Then we can start to plan for it.
See, I'm not worried about the $10,000 this year.
Want to do it? Laura, do you want to do it?
I am in favor, yes.
You want to make a motion to do it?
I
Pass that
do.
resolution with So we're gonna fill $20,000 in on the number line.
20,000 on the number line for per year. So the number line would say,
It won't say anything about in kind, it's gonna say we obligate for 20,000 of our own.
And that's up to us how we come up with it.
yes, so on that line, we save 20,000 a year. And we, when we submit the paperwork, we're detailing which is cash and which is in kind. For the purpose of what we're doing right now, the 20,000 a year.
I don't think, unless Jamie tells us, I don't think we have to say how much is gonna be cash in line. I think we have to obligate 20,000 of our own dollars. Is that right, Jamie? Yeah, she's sorry. Jamie, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So on the application, we're considering now, right close to doing it, to applying for the $20,000 state contribution and grant. When we put on our promise line, we just put that we're promising 20,000 of our own dollars. We don't have to pick at this time how much in kind it's going to be. We just obligate for 20,000.
That's right. That's correct. That's right. Yes, a mixture. You've got a mixture of cash and in kind, and you have your 20 grand.
Yeah. But we don't have to say how it's going to be mixed. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so
We
there's.
had it at the last meeting.
Yeah, so we had it at the last meeting. I'm trying to bring it up. Thank you. Okay. So, do you have it too? All right. So the resolution. Okay.
We need to close public comment.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Public comments closed.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to not forget about. So when we did our pledge 2 meetings ago, we were supposed to read out a 10-point portion out loud, and I don't think we read that portion. I think what we did was that we approved it as presented on the sheet of paper. So what I would like to do is read through that portion that I know that we have to do in this meeting, because I just don't want to forget about that.
Is that something that Jamie said we had to do?
That, Ashley?
The resolution just has to be passed verbatim, so if you had a paper resolution that had all of those items in it, and that was passed, then that's sufficient.
Okay, we did that, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, then we don't have to redo that. Wonderful, all right, so then what we do need to do is just this resolution. So I move, we approve this resolution for the village to request financial assistance from the state of New York Climate Smart Communities Grant Program. The village certifies that has identified 20,000 for 5 years. We're going to do $10,000 a year, or $10,000 total of matching funds.
$20,000 of.
$20,000 a year, so.
20,000 match.
For a total of $10,000 for the 5-year program.
$100,000.
What did I say out loud?
$10,000.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. Trying to say.
How's this motion go, Rod? You getting all that?
You know what I'm saying here. So $20,000 a year for 5 years is $100,000 that we're writing on this line. $100,000 of matching funds from location. I would like to say the DPW budget line.
Does it need a location?
Yes. I would like it from the DPW
Do we have to
budget
be that
line.
specific, or can we just say general fund?
We can say general fund, and then
Say general.
let's say general fund.
Got that right?
Okay, from the general fund, pursuant to the requirements of the environmental conservation law, therefore, be it resolved, the village of Owego hereby authorizes the mayor to act on its behalf and submit, Jamie Richard of Barton and Loveridis to act on its behalf in submittal of an application through the consolidated funding application for the $10,000 to be used for climate smart communities? Yes.
You said 10,000 again.
The $100,000. The $100,000 is therefore committed to be used for this. I'm just reading it.
Who wrote it?
I'm sorry, the state wrote it, and I'm just filling in the numbers from my head, and that's where the issue lies. Because I'm flustered. Adopted this day. And would anybody care to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion of that? Discussion will only have to be.
And this motion will be written down somewhere so that it's the state's motion and clear.
It was supported.
All right, so we will, Rusty,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
Charles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience, people.
Can I say one thing? I think we should get like a $25,000 life insurance on Kevin. That's why
I was staying there, who does nothing but work.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're covered.
Are we going to give privilege of the floor for the end? Because Julie Nucci just joined us, and I just want to say that
Yeah.
Julie Nucci did a ton of work on this. I, as you know, was working on the CRS, ended when I got burnt out. And then when Laura and Julie took it up with the CSC, which I had wanted to do in the past, but just couldn't bring myself to work hard at it. Yeah. But I'm very happy that Laura and Julie have, and that's the next step is to get a task force and to get our butts in gear.
Could award the grant.
Yeah, let's get the grant.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be next
we-
year by the time the state gives it to us.
Julie Nucci really deserves.
But I appreciate the thought of a life insurance policy.
So we got,
Jamie, do you know when they will give information about approval of this?
Yeah, what's the grant date?
See, Mark.
When,
probably years from now.
like,
Jamie,
I'm here.
oh,
do you know how long it'll take to get a response from the state as if we were awarded the grant or not?
I think, oh my goodness, I'm trying to think when they make their announcements. I'm not 100%. I feel like it's a while.
We expect.
It's usually late fall. Yeah, it's like the earliest, late fall usually.
As
It
the
can
earliest.
be early spring, like early winter.
I think that things are gonna get started for another year or something for.
Yeah, then it takes a good year to get the work plan and everything set up with the state. So
Thank you, Jamie.
you're very welcome. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, just step one.
Yeah, we're gonna be for 5 years.
They don't touch the hat.
So we have three things that we, going to speed up our, yes, this week. Do that? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mike. Make a mistake with the boring stuff?
This is real.
Back to the hard stuff, don't say anything in front of her.
Maybe talk about.
For the attendance sheet, we just want to
Good.
get.
I don't see everybody signed in.
Is that a phone? Somebody leave a phone? Oh,
Yeah.
We're still here.
He must be coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna collect everybody's names quickly.
Hey, Julie here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
K-O is his last name. K-N-O-B-B-E. What's his first name?
We got through this without from me. All right, hopefully we get to this before my stomach starts growling.
Yeah, let's do these three motions.
I don't think,
Thank you, Todd.
Rodney bought any pretzels.
You're welcome. Congratulations, everyone. And just a reminder, Ashley and myself are here free of charge to help you out with NYSERDA and DEC programs.
Thank you.
You rock.
Great, but we're gonna be charging the services to somebody.
Yeah, we want in-kind
Yeah.
credit for that.
Yeah.
Make them big anytime.
We'll collect the credit for his work.
So Mike, you ready for the,
Yep, go for it. Forward budget.
bump the budget?
Make a motion, Rusty.
What would bump the budget, $11,033.94. Doesn't say where from, but for the, as presented for the JCAP state grant receipt.
I second.
Any discussion on that? Grant the judge gets approved in court. Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
And yes. We got two transfers.
We transfer $1,030 from ARPA to pool repair line item.
I second.
Discussion? Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Move we transfer 11,030, oh, this is from the one above, the bump. Now we gotta transfer it?
Yep.
Move we transfer $11,033.94 from line item state grants to line item justice contracted services.
I second.
Discussion on that? Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Direct the motion. December 20th, 2021.
Move we, we'll call it correct the motion, move we change the minutes,
Okay, that changes the dollar amount.
on the December 2021 board meeting to read as follows. Transfer $234,050.17 from state aid to new municipal building line items.
I second.
Discussion on that. Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
One thing I have is I make a motion to have an executive session for an attorney-client session. A second attorney doesn't have to be the attorney.
Second.
I already seconded it. We talked enough tonight.
And we'll do this after public comment.
Okay.
Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
What was that? Attorney-client. Attorney here?
Well, we're gonna call them.
Yeah, we'll call.
We just have to do it out in the other room.
Or I've already talked to Nate, so we'll send it in. Public comment?
I guess I just would like to say thanks. I know it's been a lot of work and a lot of this, tough decision. It is complicated and we were dealing with a fairly short time frame. I just want to say thanks to the board and to Laura for facilitating this. I think it'll be a distinct positive for the village. And I just want to say one other thing too. Even when this grant is ongoing, you can apply for other CSC grants that you want to look at. One thing that I read that they have, and I'm not advocating for this, but to fix the stormwater system, which you all know really doesn't exist, And we have stormwater going to the sewer, which is not good, and we have stormwater sitting in puddles, which is not good. It's a big project, but this could also maybe get a grant for it.
Outdated dry wells.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big grant.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Thank
you. Anything, Julie? Good?
Can we open?
Session?
And I'm done.
Mike, you want to just turn that off? Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Julie, are you on there? I think you might be.
Yes, I'm here.
you have anything for privilege of the floor?
Pardon?
Do you have any public comment?
Thank you very much. That's my comment.
Well, thank you, sir. You put a lot of time in and we do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So like my goal is to make us a model community and an example for the state. And we can do that if we put our minds to it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right, well, we'll turn off the recording here, there's gonna be no action.
Wait, do you just, keep it on, but, do no sound, so that once it's over, we come back out and end the meeting?
Hey, Kevin can stay out and talk.
Sounds good.
All right, 9:22, close out the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Stomach's still good.